Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fans Talk Pro Wrestling Podcast. Today, it's just me, your boy, Freddy C, the host with the best French toast in the building today, and I'm going it solo for another episode here this evening. And we are here today to cover another new area of expertise in the Fans Talk Pro Wrestling Podcast world. Today, we will be delving into something that I have had a lot of interest in for a while now because of various avenues of my life, both as a wrestling fan and just in general because of being a wrestling fan. So far in the podcast, you've obviously seen Angelo and I do top 10s. We've done some open forum discussions and career chronicles. We have also done some of our own personal stories regarding wrestling and our own, our lives and things of that sort. Today, we are going to be beginning what will be another featured series throughout our time on this podcast, fantasy booking. Now, fantasy booking is something that can be done in many different ways. You can do it where you take an angle or a storyline from the past and you redo certain things that you might want to change, and you fantasy book it how you would think you could go better or how you may have personally wanted it. You could also fantasy book into the future and talk about things that haven't even happened yet, things that'll be taking place down the line, or how you could potentially foresee, or how you would book something going on in the future, which Angelo and I will be getting into a few episodes from now. And then the third way that you could do it is the way that I am going to do it today. I am going to single out a specific superstar, and I am going to rebook his entire WWE career from day one on the main roster. And that's what I will be doing today, and I will be rebooking the entire main roster WWE career of the Swiss cyborg Cesaro. Now, Cesaro is someone who on this podcast already I had been very I've had very high praise on, and I have thought very highly of him. And I do. He is, in my opinion, one of the most talented wrestlers in the world. He has unparalleled strength, speed, athleticism, and endurance in that ring, and I really wish he had been able to have so much more in his first few years in the WWE. I still believe that there is a very high ceiling for him, but I unfortunately don't know if WWE, and more specifically Vince McMahon and the powers that be, will ever let him achieve it. But I believe that I can rebook Cesaro's entire main roster run in the WWE, changing things, making certain adjustments, and thinking that maybe this could make him the star that I believe him worthy of being. And so let's go all the way back to April 20th, 2012, Cesaro's main roster debut on SmackDown. He debuted alongside Oksana, working in a storyline immediately with Theodore Long and getting signed to a contract by John Laurinaitis. Cesaro at the time was in storyline working as a former Swiss militant, former career in rugby, and he was banned for excessive aggression. He then won his quote-unquote tryout match against Tyson Kidd, and began moving towards more mid-card stuff. Cesaro scored back-to-back non-title wins over the United States champion Santino Marella, which, by the way, Santino Marella was the United States champion for a fair portion of 2012. Many people forget that, and I really can't believe it. He would go on to defeat Santino Marella on the pre-show of the SummerSlam 2012 card, and then continue to hold that championship until into 2013, where he lost the United States Championship on April the 15th to Kofi Kingston, and in his reign ending at 239 days. He received his rematch a few weeks later, but was defeated once again. So, we will pretty much be leaving all of the initial stuff alone. I don't really have many complaints about Cesaro's initial debut run on the main roster. Slight changes that I would make being when he lost the United States Championship. So, I believe that instead of losing the United States Championship on an episode of Raw after WrestleMania, he should have lost the United States Championship at WrestleMania. Now, he had been feuding with The Miz for some time, and also been working down at NXT against likes of Sami Zayn and Neville and other guys. But he never defended it at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 29 taking place in East Rutherford, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. He didn't defend the title there. I think that the U.S. Championship should have been defended at that show, whether it had been on the pre-show or whatnot, and he should have lost the title that night, not on the random episode of um, not on the random episode of Monday Night Raw shortly thereafter, but on at WrestleMania to make a bigger, more impactful, um, more impactful statement for Kofi's win and for his inevitable uh, the inevitable continuation of Cesaro's career. Now we're going to move into something that's a little bit different. Shortly after WrestleMania 29, in storyline, Cesaro kind of worked down in NXT for a little bit before coming back and really being a fixture on the main roster once again and forming the Real Americans. After working down in NXT in a feud with Sami Zayn, he got involved with Jack Swagger, Zeb Coulter, and then competed in Money in the Bank. A lot of middling around in the mid card for the middle part of 2013 before the Real Americans began being more of an established tag team and having more of an opportunity in the tag team picture. So, what happens with Cesaro that I'm going to change? Well, the first thing I'm going to change is that after WrestleMania 29, Paul Heyman began managing Curtis Axel in May of 2013. May 20th, Curtis Axel, the son of Mr. Perfect, was repackaged from his former name of Michael McGillicuddy and had become a Paul Heyman guy. Now, I was a big fan of this because I thought there was a lot of upside, and I really thought that Axel could have been more successful. But the way that they ended up booking him made him a huge afterthought in the inevitable feuds that Heyman would be involved in alongside Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, and Ryback down the line. And Axel kind of got left as an afterthought, even being the Intercontinental Champion at the time. So the real question would be for me, what is the real benefit to changing that? Well, number one, I don't wait until a month after WrestleMania. They waited until May to do that. I say the big thing that they need to do is the night after WrestleMania 29. Now Brock Lesnar's gone, and you're trying to continue. Brock's going to be gone for the foreseeable future because he doesn't work a lot of the Raws. He didn't come back until closer to SummerSlam. But what you're going to do is you're going to have the new Paul Heyman angle kick off right after WrestleMania. And instead of it being delayed into May, it's going to be right after WrestleMania, and it's not going to be Curtis Axel. It's going to be Cesaro. Cesaro is going to be the new Paul Heyman guy, and now I know a year later in 2014, Cesaro actually did become a Paul Heyman guy, working as Heyman's new associate into 2014 after the breakup of the Real Americans. So we will get there to that in a bit, but he's not. We're gonna get to this now. What's gonna happen after he becomes a Paul Heyman guy? Well, he's going to basically do the same thing that Axel did. He's going to serve as Heyman's new guy. He's going to be involved in Heyman's story shortly after WrestleMania, trying to get revenge on Triple H. He's going to get 2 pinfall victories over Triple H in a row on Raw. And I know they had some hokey stuff that went on, but he's going to beat Triple H in a ring clean via pinfall twice on Monday Night Raw to establish him. He is then going to enter the triple threat match at Payback, where Axel defeated Bad News Barrett and The Miz. It's going to be Cesaro instead of Curtis Axel, and Cesaro is going to win the Intercontinental Championship. So now, if you think about this, Cesaro has been the Intercontinental Champion and the United States Champion in just over a year on the main roster now that he has that title. So Cesaro is going to continue to be a focal point in the upcoming feud between Paul Heyman and CM Punk. The initial feud began where Paul Heyman had Curtis Axel being the guy who would attack Punk and keep Punk away from getting his hands on Heyman until Brock Lesnar got involved and ended up setting up the match at SummerSlam. What happened in reality was Axel became an afterthought. He became the background character in it and kept getting beaten up by CM Punk before Brock got involved or so Heyman could get away. And it was so repetitive, and I just did not like how that happened. So you're going to make Cesaro look good. Yes, Punk can come out on top. There's nothing wrong with that. But Cesaro has to look better than just being an afterthought. He's going to be the Intercontinental Champion. He can't be left to be middling around in a mid-card. So what's going to happen is Cesaro is going to have a couple of matches with CM Punk. He's going to actually pin CM Punk clean in one of them. It doesn't matter which one, but he is going to get a clean pinfall victory over CM Punk. So now he's beaten CM Punk and Triple H in a matter of months. He's the Intercontinental Champion, a former United States Champion, and so even though he ends up being on the losing end of the feud, when Punk comes out on top, it makes him look better. So what's going to happen what's going to happen next is after Brock Lesnar goes away and the CM Punk feud fizzles out, Cesaro is going to drop the Intercontinental Championship to Big E. He is going to drop the Intercontinental Championship to Big E at the Battleground pay-per-view in 2013. Battleground taking place early in October, right? So that's going to be the beginning of that. And he's going to drop the title to Big E at Battleground. He's going to fail to regain it the next night on Raw, and the payoff to the feud with Paul Heyman and CM Punk took place at Hell in a Cell later in the month of October. So what I say happens is that happens now. Punk is without the Intercontinental Champion. Cesaro is without the Intercontinental Championship. Him and Ryback are unable to stop Heyman from getting beaten. All goes the same. What ends up happening is CM Punk comes out on top. The next night on Raw, Paul Heyman's in a wheelchair. He's beaten up from what happened, and he's got Cesaro and Ryback there, and Cesaro steals the microphone from Heyman mid-promo and says, "Why am I wasting my time with you? I'm done." And then all of a sudden, Swagger comes in from behind, attacks Ryback. Swagger and Cesaro take down Ryback. Zeb Coulter laughs in the face of the injured Paul Heyman. Cesaro now walks away with Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter. He is now in a tag team with Swagger, which did not start when it did. It now is happening at a much later time than it had originally done, which had started over the summer. He is now the Real Americans, and that will continue into Survivor Series. So they've been teased as a babyface, but the next week on Raw, they come out and they attack the tag team champions Cody Rhodes and Goldust. They attack Cody Rhodes and Goldust because they're making a statement saying they want the tag team titles, and they ended up getting booked in the Survivor Series match, which took place that year. It was the Shield and the Real Americans versus the Usos, Cody Rhodes, Goldust, and Rey Mysterio. That match goes on as it was supposed to, and all the finish happens as it does. So now Cesaro is in the Real Americans. They are a tag team, and we're moving into 2014 now. Now, what happened in 2014 in storyline was that the New Age Outlaws, the team, yes, from the late 90s, who were, at the time, a very important tag team, had come back, and were now being featured as the main tag team in the division, looking to unseat the Rhodes brothers, who were tag team champions at the time. And they did. And the New Age Outlaws had a 2-month reign with the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. That does not have to happen. That cannot happen. That should not happen. I don't think that needs to happen at all. So, what's going to happen now? Well, the Real Americans are going to take the place of the New Age Outlaws. And at the Royal Rumble 2014, the Real Americans are going to defeat the Rhodes brothers for the tag team titles. Right? So, already, that Cesaro has now, in just under 2 years, been the U.S. champ, the Intercontinental champ, and now the tag team champions. Now, after that, what happened at Elimination Chamber 2014 was really, really good. Cesaro had one of the highest points of his career in storyline, where he was involved in the main event, the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I still want him in that match, but how he gets in there is going to be a little different. So Swagger and Cesaro are both booked in separate qualifying matches for the Elimination Chamber. Cesaro faces Jack Swagger faces Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan defeats Jack Swagger. So, Daniel Bryan has defeated Jack Swagger, and he is in the Elimination Chamber. Swagger failed to qualify for the Chamber, right? Well, Cesaro is going to defeat Dolph Ziggler, as he does, to earn a spot in the Chamber. Cesaro is going to be in the Chamber. He beats Ziggler while Swagger failed to beat Bryan. So now, Cesaro is in the Chamber, Swagger is not, and this is the tease of the first little bit of dissension in the ranks. I know this team has only been together for a short period of time, but remember, it was made as a last-minute thing. Cesaro wanted out from under the rule of Paul Heyman, and the only way he can get out was because an offer from Zeb Coulter was too good for him to refuse, almost like a Godfather type of thing. So Cesaro did that because he wanted to get out of it, and he saw another opportunity. And all Cesaro was looking for right now as a heel is opportunity. He's still working as a heel, but he's showing hints and glimmer of a babyface, and that's going going to be important later. So, what happens next? Well, Cesaro is going to compete in the main event, but Jack Swagger says he wants an opportunity. So, Zeb Coulter petitions to get him an Intercontinental Championship match, which Swagger had. He had faced Big E on the opening match of the show for the Intercontinental title. Big E defeats Swagger, so Swagger once again fails to win. Meanwhile, Cesaro does what he did in the Elimination Chamber, impressing the world out of everybody by being very much involved towards the very end, and has the best showing of his career. So Cesaro was made to look like a star, while Jack Swagger was unable to do anything. And now this tag team is really getting in, and they're butting heads. And now we're moving towards WrestleMania, and Swagger and Cesaro are butting heads, and they are not getting along at all. Zeb Coulter is trying to keep them on the same page because they now have a big tag team championship defense coming up at WrestleMania. They defend the titles at WrestleMania 30 against the Usos. The Usos won the tag team titles in actuality on the March 4th edition of Raw in 2014 from the New Age Outlaws. I'm going to say that doesn't happen. You want to save the Usos' first tag team title win in WWE for a big show, and that's going to be at WrestleMania. They're going to go to WrestleMania. They're going to have a main card match. Not a main card match. They ended up having a match on the kickoff show where they retained the titles on the actual show. Well, on the kickoff show here, they're going to win the titles from Cesaro and Swagger after another miscommunication between the two. After the match, dissension in the ranks, Cesaro attacks Swagger as he did, hitting him with the Cesaro swing, which all throughout this time got over the same way that it did in reality. He swings Swagger. He storms away from Swagger and Coulter. The tag team is broken up. No more Real Americans. Cesaro seems to have turned babyface. Then main card, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Cesaro's in there. He wins the Battle Royal. Does the same amazing moment with Andre, where he slams Big Show out of the ring. Shades of Hogan and Andre, and that will continue as everything, and that's going to solidify a face turn for Cesaro. What had happened after that, in reality, was that Cesaro became a Paul Heyman guy the next night on Raw, turning on Zeb Coulter entirely. Now, what's going to happen is Cesaro is going to come out on Raw the next night by himself as a babyface, and he is going to be celebrating his Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal win. He's going to be alone. He's going to be cutting a promo, saying how, for so long I have been trying to, I've been working under different guys. I have been, trying to follow orders and trying to stay in line, and I'm no longer going to do that. I'm going to fight for what I believe in. What I believe in is being the best that I can be in this ring, and I'm going to fight for championships, and I'm going to fight honestly and, a real true babyface promo. He'll be attacked from behind by Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger will do what he did in storyline and destroy the trophy that he did. So Cesaro will now, what's the next for Cesaro? Well, Cesaro's going to have a one-on-one match with Jack Swagger at the next pay-per-view, which I believe was Extreme Rules. Yes, it was. He is going to face Swagger one-on-one at Extreme Rules, and he will win that match. Cesaro is now going over. So now where are we going? Well, we still have 2 shows. We still have one more show before the big beginning of Cesaro's main roster run. So now this is where we will really start to stray from. We've been kind of following the lines, so to speak, with just a few bit of changes, but now we are really going to be getting into the difference. So, Cesaro is going to get a chance at the United States Championship, which is now being held by Sheamus at the Payback pay-per-view. 2 baby faces, not Cesaro, not working as a heel. Sheamus comes out, Cesaro comes out and interrupts a Sheamus promo one night, and he says, "I respect you. You're one of the most talented wrestlers in the back. You're one of the toughest wrestlers, and I want to see if I can beat you, and I want to see if I can prove myself to you." They agree. They have a hard-hitting match. After the match, they shake hands. They give each other a hug. And, Cesaro fails to win the United States Championship, but has a long 20-minute brutal battle with Sheamus at Payback. So, we move to Money in the Bank. End of June 2014, it's going to be the 8-man ladder match to determine the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Cesaro was in that match, and nothing will change about the competitors. It will still remain Cesaro, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, John Cena, Kane, Randy Orton, Sheamus, and Alberto Del Rio. The same 8 men who competed in that match in reality will compete in our story here. Cesaro is going to, again, have another fantastic showing. This time, he's working the match as a babyface and not as a heel with Paul Heyman in his corner. He's working, remember, all through this, he's now working as a true-blooded babyface. So Cesaro is going to be, he's going to get taken out because now Orton and Kane are going on a rampage. And this is where the big booking decision is going to come in. In what happened, John Cena ended up taking down Kane and Randy Orton and climbing the ladder to become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion for the 15th time. I say what happens is this. Cesaro and Cena together come in the ring. One takes out Orton, one takes out Kane. They both climb the ladder. They're trading blows at the top. Cesaro hits one more huge uppercut. Cena goes flying. Cesaro pulls down the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Cesaro is now the world champion. In just over 2 years on the main roster, he has held every championship there is to hold on the main roster. He is now the world champion. He's the face of the company. Triple H and Stephanie are upset because they wanted Randy or Kane, and yet Cesaro's the champ. He's sticking it to the Authority. He's this big baby face. He's at the top of the card. That's big for Cesaro. But you got to capitalize on it, and you've got to continue with this. So what happens next? Well, if we move into July, we are going to go to the Battleground pay-per-view. At Battleground, it was John Cena, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and Kane in a fatal four-way match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. What's going to happen is it's going to be John Cena versus Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton versus Cesaro. Cesaro being the world champion. Cesaro is going to win the match by pinning Randy Orton. Randy Orton, this is going to be a big thing for him. He is now going to continue to fail. He's not going to be able to win the big one. And every time he turns around, he is unable to win the big one. And that becomes important later. So, Cesaro retains the championship by pinning Randy Orton. He doesn't pin Cena. He doesn't pin Reigns. We are now in July, and we're approaching SummerSlam. Cesaro had pinned Orton, and the Authority is getting really frustrated. They want the title off of Cesaro because they did not want Cesaro to be the champion. And they're so mad that Cesaro beat their guy, they don't care who takes the title off of him. So they say, we're going to put you in a match against someone we know that you can't beat. And no matter what you try and do, you will not win. Cue Brock Lesnar, accompanied by Paul Heyman. Cesaro, his former manager, come into the ring with this monstrous challenge for him. Cesaro and Lesnar are set for a date at SummerSlam. Now, we have to make some other changes to the card because obviously the main event, which was Cena versus Lesnar, is going to change. So, we are going to have a triple threat match between... We are going to have John Cena versus Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. The winner faces the world champion at Night of Champions for the world championship. Right? So... No, I am sorry. That's my bad. We're jumping ahead to something a little down the line. You have John Cena versus Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. Those three guys are going to battle it out. There's no stipulations on the line. It's because these three guys have still been all at each other's throats. It's going to be a big opportunity for Reigns to get a big win over two main roster guys who have been there forever, established. He pins Orton again. Orton loses the big match. So Cesaro versus Lesnar in the main event. And it's very similar to what happened between Cena and Lesnar in the actuality of it all. Cesaro gets thrown around, Lesnar wins with ease, Lesnar's now the world champion, and Cesaro's first reign as champ is cut short because the Authority stuck it to him. Cesaro gets his rematch at Night of Champions and once again fails to regain the championship. He's lost to Lesnar now twice. So he's got doubts in his mind. We move to Hell in a Cell, and we are going to move to a number one contenders match. This is where I made the mistake before with my speaking. There's going to be a triple threat Hell in a Cell match to determine the number one contender for the world championship. Cesaro versus Randy Orton versus John Cena. Remember, Roman Reigns at this time had been injured with the hernia and he was out for several months, so Roman is out of the picture for right now. Cena faced Randy Orton in a one-on-one match at Night of Champions. Cena pinned Randy once again for the fourth consecutive month. Third consecutive pinfall loss, fourth in a row. Randy has continued to lose the big one since WrestleMania. He lost the title at WrestleMania. He lost 2 matches to The Shield with Evolution. He lost the ladder match for the title. He got pinned by Cesaro at Battleground. He got pinned by Reigns at SummerSlam. He gets pinned by Cena at Night of Champions. So Orton, this is like his last chance. The Authority has been saying to Randy, if you can't win this match, we're done with you. This is your last chance to prove to us you're still as good as we once thought you were. So now Randy has got all this fire in his belly. Cesaro's fired up because he wants to get back at Lesnar. And Cena's fired up because this is, he's kind of becoming the afterthought through all of this. So what's going to happen now? Well, the Hell in a Cell match takes place. Great match. Cena pins Orton to win the match. Cesaro is not involved in the decision. Cena pins Orton with a super AA off the second rope through a table. Cena beats Orton. Cena's the number one contender. Orton has been beaten for the 5th consecutive pay-per-view. Cesaro did not get pinned, but he got nowhere in terms of getting his another rematch. The next night on Raw, Randy Orton is excommunicated from the Authority, and he is taken out for several months thanks to the interaction with Seth Rollins. Orton now written off TV. Cena and Cesaro are now working together because this is when Cena begins to move towards his story with the Authority and the big Survivor Series 5-on-5 match that took place, Team Authority versus Team Cena. Now, I'm going to keep a lot of what happened the same with just some tweaks. Number one, the first tweak, take out Eric Rowan from Team Cena, insert Cesaro. The reason I take out Eric Rowan is because, despite the fact that that Eric Rowan and Luke Harper were former Wyatt family members and had just been released from the Wyatts by Bray, what I didn't understand was why all of a sudden they hated each other after having been a tag team for the entire first year of their time on the main roster. So, I'm not so certain of that. Harper being on Team Authority is fine. I'm very glad to include him in a major story, but Rowan never really needed to be there. Include Cesaro because there's a lot of history with him and Cena. Him and Cena were the last 2 men on the ladder at Money in the Bank. Him and Cena battling it out inside Hell in a Cell with a chance at World Championship glory on the line. Now, him and Cena standing together to face the Authority. The Authority has screwed both men over time and time again over the course of the last year. Now, they're standing up together with Dolph Ziggler, The Big Show, and Ryback. We're going to get to Survivor Series, and everything happens as it does, except it's down to Big Show, Cena, and Cesaro against 4 members of Team Authority. Big Show, seeing that the numbers game is against them, knocks out Cena, gets counted out. Cena gets pinned. Cesaro is now left all by himself, like Ziggler was. Ziggler gets eliminated early, as does Ryback. And Cesaro's left alone. He'll clean sweep the rest of Team Authority, like Ziggler did, has this true babyface heroic finish. Even though Sting got involved, Sting will still get involved, as he did. And what ends up happening is that it's going to be Cesaro standing tall at the end of Survivor Series. Now, there's going to be the ongoing stuff, Cena, them getting fired, and when the Authority comes back. We're going to go to TLC now, and it will be Kane and Ryback, as it was. It will be Cena and Rollins, Big Show, Harper versus Ziggler, and it'll be Big Show versus Cesaro. Now, Big Show and Cesaro have history. Go back to the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and Cesaro, body slamming Big Show, eliminating him from the match, has made it so that Big Show could not win the match that everyone pegged him to win. So, they have a match. No stairs match stipulation. I absolutely hated that. No stairs match stipulation. It's just going to be a regular match. Cesaro's going to come out on top, a big Cesaro swing, and a big victory over the Big Show, all these bigs, for Cesaro. Move towards now the Royal Rumble match. Now, this Royal Rumble was the very controversial one that saw Roman Reigns win the whole thing. So how I change it? Well, it's very simple. The final 2 saw Roman Reigns and Rusev, because Rusev was down on the outside of the ring for an extended period of time, came in and eliminated Roman Reigns, tried to eliminate Roman only to get eliminated. So what I say is, instead of Rusev, it will be Cesaro. Cesaro rolls back into the ring after being left down for broke outside. He tries to attack Roman from behind when it's down to the final 2. Everyone's booing Roman now, so everyone doesn't like Roman. Cesaro's going to hit the ring. He's going to try and counter it. He's going to try and attack Roman from behind. Roman ducks, hits a big spear. Everyone thinks Roman's going to win, tries to throw Cesaro out, but at the last second, Cesaro counters and throws Roman out of the match. Cesaro won the Royal Rumble, and Cesaro is now going to WrestleMania. He now knows he's got a date with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And the crowd will go home happy from that, because Cesaro winning instead of Roman was perfect. They boo Roman out of the building. Roman's now becoming more of a heel, and this is where we're at. So, we now move towards WrestleMania. Things have changed. Cesaro had competed in a tag team match with Tyson Kidd on the kickoff show, and Roman Reigns main evented the show. So that's not going to be the case. Cesaro is main eventing against Brock Lesnar. The lower on the card, a heel Roman Reigns is going to face John Cena. Now, how does this matter? Well, John Cena is This big name, everyone's starting to compare Roman to him. Oh, no. Apologies again. I'm kind of getting my notes crossed. That's my bad. Roman Reigns is going to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan are going to compete in a number one contenders match to the Intercontinental Championship and face the winner of the ladder match. Wade Barrett will win the ladder match and retain his championship, then go on to face the winner of that match, which will be Daniel Bryan. Bryan will beat Roman, so the fans are happy at WrestleMania. The next night on Raw, Bryan beats Barrett, wins the Intercontinental Championship, but of course we can't book around injuries, and so Bryan will have to relinquish the title a few weeks later because of the injury that he ended up forcing him into his initial early retirement. Reigns now has been established as this big heel because he turns heel on Cesaro as we move through the road to WrestleMania. A lot of the road to WrestleMania can be bog standard. Cesaro will have some match at Fastlane. Maybe he'll have a one-on-one match with Roman. He pins Roman clean, but Roman's now a big monster heel. We're going to go with that aim, and that's another story for another day. But Cesaro now faces Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania, and this match is a lot different than the two matches they had prior. Both SummerSlam and Night of Champions saw Cesaro get his backside handed to him on multiple occasions with suplexes all over the place, F5s, and beatdowns that left him lying in a heap. What happens here instead is that Cesaro is going to have a whole new game plan. He's going to come out of the blocks firing. Him and Lesnar just trade blows. He gets out of some suplex attempts. He counters some F5s. He kicks out at every turn that he gets knocked down. Cesaro is not going to go down without a fight. He eventually hits the Cesaro swing on Lesnar, which, an important factor from the first two matches they had, he never was able to swing Lesnar. Lesnar never allowed it. He always kept Cesaro away from it. So he finally swings him, and he has him down, hits the neutralizer, kick out at 2. Goes for another Lesnar counters, hits the F5, both men are down, no cover. Seth Rollins comes in, cashes in Money in the Bank, pins Cesaro, wins the title, and runs off into the night with the championship that he steals from both Lesnar and Cesaro. So now we are moving into the post-WrestleMania era here. What's going to happen? Well, your immediate feud, instead of Seth versus Randy, is Seth versus Cesaro. Seth will beat Cesaro at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and then at the Payback pay-per-view a month later, it will be Cesaro, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins, instead of Randy Orton being involved. Randy Orton can be involved in any other feud that you want. I'm not going to get to that small of a detail. Randy will be moved to some other feud. His was paid off with Seth at WrestleMania earlier in the night, as it had been. So we have Cesaro. So Seth pins Dean Ambrose that night, which then sends them off into their feud. Cesaro is going to work the Money in the Bank ladder match. The Money in the Bank ladder match in 2015, which had been won by his future tag team partner Sheamus, I am going to say doesn't get won by Cesaro. It's going to be won by Sheamus. It's going to be won by Cesaro. Cesaro is going to win Money in the Bank. So if you've been keeping track of his accolades, Cesaro is racking up accolades quick. Remember, he said he's going to fight for prizes and he's going to fight for what's right. He's now been U.S. champ, Intercontinental champ, tag champ, world champ, Royal Rumble, and Money in the Bank, plus a WrestleMania main event, all in the course of 3 years on the main roster. He has racked up the most successful superstar in such a short period of time that there's ever been. So Cesaro's Mr. Money in the Bank, and he'll feud with Randy Orton. He'll feud, which was never properly done one-on-one the year before. He'll feud with Sheamus. He'll have some mid-card feuds, keep him away from the world title scene. Seth Rollins' injury threw the plans for a loop in late 2015. So instead of Cesaro being in the tournament that was made to find a new champion, insert Sheamus. Sheamus is going to be in there, so you're able to book around the injury here because Cesaro got hurt working a match in the tournament. He was working a match with Roman Reigns, and he gets hurt. So insert Sheamus to that. Roman comes all the way to the end. He wins. He's the world champ. He wins the tournament by beating Ambrose in the finals, but instead of it being Sheamus who cashes in because of a distraction from Triple H, Cesaro cashes into this huge babyface ovation. The next night on Raw, Cesaro's out there celebrating. The Authority comes out to try and distract, to talk to Cesaro. He'll get assaulted from behind by Roman Reigns, and I don't like to book injuries that were legit, but Cesaro missed a good portion of the next few months because of an injury. So what we're going to do is this is where he gets hurt, and now for the second time in less than less than a month, the current world champion has been injured. Cesaro, who at this time now, because of this win, is a two-time world champion, has now been forced to relinquish the title just like Seth Rollins did because of an injury. Now, how are they going to crown a new champion? Well, they try to put it on Roman, but Dean Ambrose won't allow it. They don't crown a champion at TLC. There's no definitive finish, so the only way to do it is to allow the winner of the Royal Rumble match to become the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So what happens? By now, you're trying to, Roman's a heel, and he enters at number 1, but it's not because he's forced to. He draws that number unluckily. He stays in there the whole time, and then at the very end, Triple H comes out at number 30 and eliminates Roman Reigns to win the match. But the important factor here is this is kicking Roman out of the Authority. They're going to take another stab at making him a babyface, and hopefully a year of being a heel gives the crowd more of a reason to cheer him when he gets screwed by Triple H, and hopefully when he wins the title back at WrestleMania, it becomes more of a big deal. So Roman wins the title at WrestleMania, and that's where we're at. But now we're going to get back to Cesaro. Cesaro returned from his injury right after WrestleMania 32 in a fatal four-way to determine a new number 1 contender to Roman's championship. He'll lose that, but he'll end up in a feud for the Intercontinental Championship with The Miz, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. He'll have that feud, and a lot of what happened in the summer of 2016 will remain the same. He'll feud with those guys over the Intercontinental Championship, but he'll just fall short here and there. He's just missing an opportunity. He gets screwed out of the title at Extreme Rules. Then at Payback, he gets screwed out of the title at Payback, and then he loses at Extreme Rules, but it's Sammy who gets pinned and not Cesaro, so he was never pinned. Money in the Bank, he competes, but this year he doesn't win. It's still won by Dean Ambrose. Now so a lot of what happens here is gonna stay the same. He's not the same Cesaro that we saw coming back from his injury. There's something lacking from what he had before he was injured. So what's that going to be? Well, he gets drafted to Raw in the brand split, and this is where his resurgence is going to come. Remember, he's been working as a babyface since WrestleMania, right after WrestleMania 30. So he ends up getting into another feud with Sheamus, which he hadn't had in a little while. And they have the best of 7 series, and then they get put into the tag team. And the tag team ends up being the resurgence that his career had been lacking, and they keep making reference to that on commentary. Cesaro former world champion, both Sheamus and Cesaro, both of them former world champions who have been in such a rut as of late. What's going to happen now? Something's got to happen. How do we do it? This is their salvation. And then all the stuff that happened with the Bar was great. When they turn heel right after WrestleMania 33, that is going to be the first time Cesaro works as a heel in 3 years. So he's had a long babyface run at the top of the card, and now he's working as this heel tag team guy for a few years, and all the stuff with the Bar is going to stay the same. We're going to fast forward all the way through 2 years later to WrestleMania 35, MetLife Stadium in the place where Cesaro had lost the United States Championship 6 years prior. So now here we are, all these years later. We've skipped over a lot because I'm not touching any of the stuff with the Bar. I thought the Bar was great, and little booking decisions there with the hot potato with the titles. Maybe they looked weak at sometimes. Those are little details that I'm gonna kind of skip over, but because I liked the Bar overall, and I'm gonna keep that as it was. So we're going to get to WrestleMania 35. The Bar lost the tag team championships to Shane McMahon and The Miz at the Royal Rumble in 2019. They failed to regain the titles at Elimination Chamber, and at Fastlane, they weren't even involved in the tag team title match. At WrestleMania, it was the Fatal 4-Way. Aleister Black and Ricochet versus The Bar versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev versus the Usos for the tag team titles. The Bar win the titles at WrestleMania, and they're now 6-time champs. I believe that would make them 6-time champs together. But they had a miscommunication. They won by chance. Sheamus brogue kicked Cesaro by accident because he was holding up one of the Usos. Then the Usos try to roll him up, and then a whole thing with all the other teams gets in there, and then Sheamus ends up rolling up Jimmy Uso for a 3 count, and they win. But there's a lot of dissension among the ranks. So the following week on SmackDown, there's a triple threat match. The Hardys now involved, the Usos, and Sheamus and Cesaro. Sheamus and Cesaro lose the match to the Hardys, having another miscommunication. This time, Cesaro uppercuts Sheamus. Now, I know Sheamus ended up missing time because he ended up going and having to rehab his spinal stenosis. So instead of him leaving after WrestleMania, he works one more match. They drop the titles. Cesaro and him get into a big fight and an argument after the match. Cesaro ends up laying out Sheamus, once again turning babyface for the first time in 2 years. He's now back as a babyface singles guy, and what's going to happen now is I'm going to immediately insert Cesaro into a feud with the Intercontinental Champion coming out of WrestleMania, Finn Balor. Both baby faces, now both on SmackDown. They're working together. They're working together and having a feud, and they're going to have a great series of matches. But again, Cesaro falls short, and the questions return for him. And he mentions this in a backstage interview after losing to Finn Balor at the pay-per-view right after WrestleMania 35. I believe that was Payback. I don't remember exactly. Oh, no, not Payback. Money in the Bank. Sorry. Balor does not compete in Money in the Bank. You find someone else to replace him on the SmackDown side, and the Intercontinental title gets defended. Cesaro comes up short, and he's interviewed on SmackDown and says, I'm not so sure, if being a singles guy is for me, because before I teamed with Sheamus, I was a singles guy who returned from an injury and had lost his step, and I don't know if I'm the same superstar I was a few years ago when I was beating the likes of, John Cena and Roman Reigns and Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar, so he's really questioning it, and how he solves that is having having a big match at Super Showdown against The Undertaker. Now, I am booking this because I am an absolute hatred of what happened at Super Showdown 2019. Goldberg versus Undertaker was god-awful, and I'm not going to go into it because I've done so already, and I think we all know how terrible it was. What I'm going to say is that Cesaro feuds with Taker going into Super Showdown. Those two close the show with a huge match, and I'm going to make a controversial decision here. Cesaro pins The Undertaker in the middle of the ring. I know there's really no storyline significance to it at all. Cesaro has no reason to be working with The Undertaker, especially as a babyface. But Cesaro pins Taker, and after the match, Taker shakes Cesaro's hand, a showing of respect to this guy who's now such an established star, and he's finally on the right track as a singles guy again. And so Cesaro has his confidence back. He's now ready and raring to go, and he'll enter into a feud with the WWE Champion, Kofi Kingston, going into Stomping Ground. No more feud with Ziggler, only the one match at Super Showdown. Cesaro and Kingston go at it. Kingston defeats Cesaro, but they shake hands after. It's a fantastic match. Cesaro knows, I know I'm the same guy I used to be. Even though I lost tonight, I know I can hang with the best of the best. And then Cesaro will feud with Shinsuke Nakamura coming out of into SummerSlam, where he'll feud with Shinsuke for the Intercontinental Championship. And he will regain the Intercontinental title. He'll pin Shinsuke Nakamura at SummerSlam, a short reign for Nakamura, and they will move towards the fall. They'll feud back and forth. Eventually, Nakamura will regain the Intercontinental Championship just before Survivor Series. Cesaro loses his rematch, and he's in the back trying to recover from losing the rematch on an episode of SmackDown, where Sami Zayn, who at this time had already started to align himself with Nakamura, comes up to Cesaro and says, that he stops a fight between the two because they've been so at each other's throats, and he goes, I think that you guys could, you work so well against each other in the ring, I think you can work even better as a team. And so Cesaro begrudgingly accepts. He slowly turns heel once again, even though he's only been babyface for a few months. And then him and Nakamura actually win the tag team championships from the New Day. Nakamura is now a double champion, and they will hold those titles coming into 2020. And instead of the New Day, who kind of they're kind of an afterthought, as they've usually been with the New Day and the Revival. I know that there was some good stuff there, but they'll win the tag team titles coming into 2020 at the Royal Rumble event in 2020, and they will now be the tag team champions going into WrestleMania. And I'm going to leave the booking there because we're getting awfully close to where we are now, and so much happened with the coronavirus pandemic that I'm not so sure I could properly rebook anything just yet in all that respect. So what we are going to do is we're going to leave it there, and I have now gone back to 2012 and rebooked all of Cesaro's career all the way up until right here into 2020, and just before coronavirus pandemic, leaving it off as Cesaro once again tag team champions, this time with Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel. But if we'll recount Cesaro's accolades, he won the 2015 Men's Royal Rumble match. He won the 2015 Money in the Bank ladder match. He is a two-time world champion, a two-time Intercontinental champion, a former one-time United States champion, and an eight-time tag team champion. 6 reigns with Sheamus, 1 reign with Jack Swagger, and 1 reign with Shinsuke Nakamura. So the question will remain, what would happen to Cesaro next? Well, maybe another day down the line we'll have some more clarity on what ended up happening. But for right now, where we will leave it is that Cesaro is where he's at, and hopefully you all enjoyed listening to this fantasy booking of the career of Cesaro. He was the first guy I really wanted to tackle because of how important I believe he is in the grand spectrum and how big of a superstar he really could have become overall. It's unfortunate how little proper booking was done in his to help his cause, but with proper thought and execution, you can truly undo a lot of that. And then, this is all fantasy booking. This is nothing in any way, shape, or form, stuff that's ever set in stone. It didn't happen, and, nothing we do when we do fantasy booking is ever going to be, super real. We do it because we think that it's the best way to do it and how we would have done it and how we would have enjoyed to see it. So there will be more of this going forward, and I know I have a couple of the superstars and angles that in particular I would like to rebook. I have a show entirely that I would rebook, but all that's to come in the future. Angelo and I have been working on a big 10th episode, which will be coming very soon. This is episode 8. Episode 10 will be another big fantasy booking episode that Angelo and I will be working on in unison. We will be back together for episode 9 very soon. We thank you, as always, for tuning into the Fans Talk Pro Wrestling Podcast. We always ask you, as always, to like, share, and subscribe, and to keep listening to us, and to never be afraid to be a fan. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.